one and all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown, and with me for the very first time are our stupendous spherical storytellers. Say hi, stupendous spherical storytellers.
Hi,
Hi,
storytellers.
Perfect. No notes. I was trying to figure out what's a word that can mean dome that like lets me still use storytellers. So that was the best I came up with. Oh man, this is so exciting. I'm so excited for all of you to be here. You all had such an incredible season of Burrow's End, truly one of the best seasons I think we've ever seen from Dimension 20. And, you know, obviously a lot to do with the players, but a lot to do with what, you know, was either on the table in front of them or on the screens behind them. I think felt really, really special. And I wanted to start with an icebreaker where instead of you tell me something about yourself, I want you to tell me something about someone else on the call that you think they either did really cool work this season or something you just really like about them. Because we don't take compliments well as a group, I'm sure. And we should encourage our friends to compliment each other. I can start. I'll start with like the easiest one. Kelsey Hunter, responsible for the beating heart of our beloved Polly the Bear, truly like set a bar next level. The whole bear was incredible, but really the fact that the heart was beating really made it feel special. So Kelsey.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was not to like take credit off of myself, but it was a group effort. A lot of conversations between Rick and Casey, figuring out how to do that. But I would say I loved Shane's minis this season. Like, I know that he really enjoyed making them because they're like gristly and gross. And then the maxis were just like something else. So that was something really cool this season, or like props to him.
Yeah, and I would piggyback that off of to Rick because, again, we can only make what he helps push for. And this season was definitely a lot more horror, weird, like scale differences than I was expecting our show to even touch. So props to him for pushing for that because that surprised me. And I think it all worked out really well for being so out of the box.
Well, thank you. I will put the spotlight on KC for doing a really good job managing things both remotely and in person in the spin up of this, and also for, you know, as usual, leading the mini shoot charge and make everything look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Opportunity to shout out Raven, who's not feeling well today and couldn't join, but is the other half of the art side of the mini shoot team. But Derek and Ruby, there's so much more that goes into projections backgrounds than it might seem. It's not just making a pretty picture. It's you know, thinking about what compositionally makes sense with the players and what will not be distracting, and they're just really on top of all of that in a way that I always learn a new layer of what goes into projections from working with them. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And then throwing it back to you guys both, to Rick, who is amazing to work with. Every single time we get to do a season with you is amazing. And getting to work with you and have creative ideas and throw things back and forth is awesome. And this was also the first season where we got to sneak into the mini shoot for a little bit and hang out with Casey and Raven and see what you guys do. And it is truly amazing, the just little creative things you guys do to make the mini shoot so amazing. So that was just a particular fun little thing for us this season to get to see.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with Derek and Ruby. I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you yet. Everyone else on this call has been pestered by me for like a full hour breakdown of something that they did. And yeah, the projections were so incredible. I mean, I think, you know, all year long, but really like in the last two seasons, Mentopolis and Burrow's End, I want to talk about like how your projections get made. I know you've posted some behind the scenes where you're literally like wearing a grappling hook, like the very like fun things. I do have one very specific question. How did you get the blind like slat lighting in Mentopolis? Like, was that projections? Was that in the dome?
That is lighting. So that was Kevin Stiller, the DP, working with, and it's just specific hard source Lecos around the dome with a gobo in them to create that sort of structured filtered light. And so that was a practical light source that there was just a fixture on each of the sides of the table to give that sort of impression of light through windows.
That's super cool. All right, well then, timing the projections this season, obviously very important because there was story to be told that Aabria was trying to get out. Like how closely did you work with her in terms of like getting that timing down, getting those projections made? Can you run me through a bit of that process?
Yeah. So Aabria basically sent us the script and sent that to Rick, and we kind of went through what the beats were and we storyboarded all of that and figured that out. And then as we were working on it, we sort of sent back the storyboards, got a little bit of feedback, and then because of the timeline on everything for this, what actually ended up happening is that we created those pieces and then sent them back, and Aabria told us, like, I'm sitting here, I'm practicing, like, watching them and, like, timing them out to it. So it was sort of that, like, she wrote that script for it, and then we built it, and she rehearsed it to time it out with those shorts.
That's super cool. So speaking of Aabria, it seems like we are not going to have a post-season like production like adventuring party as has happened in the past, and I'm curious if it's because Aabria is too scared to face all of you after what she made you build this season.
I mean, maybe so. What's up, Aabria? Where are you at? No, I think it probably has, I'm guessing, I don't really know, but it probably has more to do with just dropouts like hiatus schedule and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, Aabria, you have crimes to answer for. So
let's talk about those crimes. Goodness, what a season of gnarly carnage beginning to end, both on the dome, on the table. What were some of y'all's favorite parts that you got to work on this season? And we can just kind of like bounce around however you want.
I mean, the bear was pretty amazing. That was just, I mean, a lot of like, go deeper, make it more gross. Like, this isn't actually what a dead animal looks like. Like, oh, sorry. So, and then just a lot of like different components, trying to figure out how it works, like having it actually open. Like, we really talked about like basically like the first day that I came on, like it was bare for like weeks, like really trying to lock that down and figure out how it was going to work. And I think all of the effort like really paid off, and it's just so exciting seeing how the cast members reacted and like how the artists were so attached to our bear. I think, I mean, it just really, everyone loves the
bear. Everyone loves Polly. Agreed. Yes.
It was strange to see the crew. I mean, especially the team that was really working on the bear, but like the whole crew sort of like have such clear affection for such a truly
very
disgusting thing. Like they had was real like love for that bear.
Yeah,
I mean, that bear is definitely my favorite thing I haven't worked on. Like, I wasn't in the studio when they started, and I was like demanding pictures. And when I finally got to see it in person, it was like every little break I could Google it and just like imagine taking it home with me, and you know, the normal stuff.
Yeah, that's actually one of the sets where I'm like, I feel kind of bad. Like the bear's like tucked away somewhere, like just bleeding, you know, alone.
He's hibernating because it's winter. It's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
He'll return for Burrow's End 2 Mission to Mars. Bear will be their rocket ship.
One thing that was really gratifying for me was actually working on the projections with Derek and Ruby, because the you know, there's a few references for this season, like Secret of Nim and Watership Down, as well as John Carpenter movies. That is sort of the surprise reference, but but Secret of NIMH and Watership Down were both like movies that I watched as a kid and like really like, you know, scared the hell out of me and stuck with me. And so it was really fun to work with them to create a, you know, we put like the tooth of the paper of these watercolor things in there, and they are sort of like painting themselves in a really subtle way. Like there's just a lot to them, and I just thought you guys did a killer job, and they were so evocative and stunning, but also like they did that thing where they're like there, but they're not too you know, in the front of the frame. So anyway.
Yeah, it was those were so much fun to work on. Like anytime we get to do something that's very heavily stylized like that, like you came in with all those references and those images, we're so excited to see that, because it's always so great to lean into those kind of stylistic things, because it really sets a tone for the players in the dome, because they're surrounded by them, and so being able to immerse them in something like that and see their reactions when they pop up is always so gratifying. And then obviously the shadow puppet stuff was huge amount of fun to work on. We were able to bring in our friend who's an amazing puppeteer and puppet builder, Jacob Sarovsky, and just throw crazy things at him that we storyboarded. My favorite being in that opening one where we had just written in, okay, and so then all of the Stoat's eyes are going to open at the same time, and then the heart will pop out, and that'll be revealed. So just however that happens, just figure that one out and it'll be great. And he did. And we sat there practicing it because we needed to get it all in one take. And then just he killed it. And so shooting those and then seeing how they looked in the dome, seeing everyone's reactions to them every time they happen, so much fun.
It sort of bounce off of that. I would say for me too, I really enjoyed some of the like stylistic style of painting I was able to do this season. Like specifically, I would say like some of the first Stoats, and definitely the pretty unique Stoat riding in a mutilated body at the very end. Is that since there's a lot of
R.I.P. Carlos Luna.
Since there's a lot of like flesh and gore and stuff, instead of going like as realistic as possible, like playing with the very John Carpenter, Ralph Bakshi style of like kind of gore concept, it was a lot more just like painterly, which I really enjoy. But being able to like play with the different textures of the gore was able to get a lot of just more abstract colorings of reds and purples and blues, but it feel right because, you know, it's abstractly gore. So those were really fun.
AC, how about you?
I mean, the bear is its own creature. I really like that in contrast, the second battles were a lot of hard surfaces and more like precision and puzzly and things that had to fit together. Like we were saying in my one-on-one, like the reactor battle had to be entirely laser cut and really planned, and the sliding puzzle one, that was a lot of that was Kelsey doing that. But I got to sort of help figure out the pipe enclosure and work closely with carpenter Kyle Smith, who actually made that, and making round shapes with wood is really hard, and he did a good job. So yeah, I liked that there was like weird organic stuff like in the DM screen and the bear, but then there was a lot of like precision and hard surface stuff, which we don't always get to do, and that's fun.
Yeah, the contrast between like the very human and like the natural elements, I think, really shone through with those differences between the sets.
It helps push the like nastiness just by being able to bounce between like mutilated shapes and weird like gore, and then just like stark factories and warehouses and silos and
bouncing off something, Kelsey, you said, which is that's not what the inside of a dead body looks like. Are there any like hobbies that you all have that sort of unexpectedly help prepare you for Dimension 20 in any way? Not necessarily this season, but I mean, obviously, Rick, yours is a background in hunting animals.
I mean, I talked about this last time on my like one-on-one, how I've done a lot of true crime shows. So I've seen a lot of real dead bodies that I've had to recreate. So this was felt like kind of a continuation, but in a more artistic and fun way. But it's very interesting, like I feel this a lot, like my past experiences and like things I've done for other work seems to come up a lot with D20 because we're always doing something different. And I think that's what a lot of our artists find really satisfying is like, oh, like I have this one particular skill that I have done in the past and like I can bring this here. So I feel like it's really just a collection of all our own experiences that we get to bring towards this show.
Yeah, I would double down on what Kelsey said, and that's a big draw for me on the show is that since it's always so different, like it really pushes you creatively. Like the best example is this season is right up my alley. I love little furry critters and creatures, and I love horror fantasy, and both of those are directly up what I do already. So this was like an easy, perfect blend. And then another season that I loved working on is Crown of Candy, which is all bright colors, all bright like pastel weird shapes that is like not what I do on the day to day. So being able to bounce between like things that you're really already into and just like roll off the sleeve versus having to challenge yourself is at least for me, the most entertaining and like artistically kind of challenging aspect of it that keeps the like, because it keeps the passion brewing. You know, you have a little experiment here, then you dip down into what you're used to and get to just push that real easily and kind of go back and forth that way.
A really cool thing to see in the shop, and it's kind of part of what Casey and Kelsey and Allison have done, is like when we have a lot of stuff to do, and it's a lot of different little areas like a bear and a nuclear reactor and all these things that and there's a lot of different technical parts of it. Like this is working with laser cut acrylic, and this is a scratch build, and this is like detail painting, and so, or this is flocking or whatever. And it's really neat to, I mean, and so Casey and Kelsey like sort of suss out like, well, who's the person to put on this task, and what's the team, how are we going to get this done? This little puzzle of all these different things, and it's really neat to see people kind of zero in and sort of get to like just jam for a few days on some particular arena of model making or whatever that they're really, really good at. And it's just like, whoa, we got the right person for that. It's so cool to see.
Any unexpected hobbies that brought in projections, Derek Ruby?
I feel like the fun of it is just we do something so different every season, and that's so much fun for us. We're primarily theatrical designers, and so we come from a background in theater and doing all elements of theater. So I mean, part of this one that was an unexpected was we physically built the cranky box for the shadow puppet stuff, because it's just to the style. You need this box that you can put the rolls of paper on and tensions it and roll it between. It's huge. It's this huge box that we drew up plans for. We catted out and then went to a shop and spent a day cutting and building and constructing in a wood shop. It's just like crazy things that we do that you never even see. It's just part of the way that we make it happen. But just being able to have those sort of skills to just do whatever it is to be able to make it happen is just, it's the fun of it, is just how different it is every time.
Super fun, yeah.
I wouldn't say I used the best interest, but I sort of developed an interest, or at least a tolerance in body horror. Like before this, I was like, oh god, like making like this. The beer research, Rick was like, yeah, put in this the one where like the fat is decaying. I was like, what?
That was the worst one.
I was just like, okay, time to resize it. Like, I just really don't like and just general like fear. Like, why would you want to be afraid? Why would you want that? Why do people watch these things? But then like but then like experiencing like the bear as like a viewer and like that kind of like, but like in like the safety of a narrative experience, I was like, okay, I kind of get it. So now I'm gonna watch horror movies.
It's all the Saw movies.
Yeah.
Just
go right
off
the
the deep end. Yeah. Oh, that's super fun. The bear, I think is such a perfect example of really everyone here like coming together, because you had like the actual bear itself, but the chipmunks were horrifying, and like in their own right. You had the beautiful shots of interior of the bear, of like the tongues shooting out, and like it was Izzy, I believe, that was like, I have all their tongues in my hand. And you have like a shot of that mini. And then the projection of, interior bear along the wall. I mean, I think like you all you collaborate so well to make like a complete experience, both for the folks in the dome and for the viewers at home. I'm wondering like how is that collaboration when some of you are spread out pretty far?
I mean, I think that really goes to Casey and Rick. Like, they really know how this works. I have like the least experience, I guess, with D&D as a whole. So I'm like, oh, that doesn't matter. And they're like, no, it really does. I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, their experience, like just knowing how this show works. Like, I mean, they're, they've obviously like huge talents at this, like masters.
Yeah, the legendary Rick Perry premiering tomorrow night.
So I really want to add that because the bear did again, like you said, it tapped into stuff for the players, for the DM, for us creating. But one thing, as someone who wasn't there for the beginning of the bear, that I appreciated was in Rick and Casey's office, sort of was this steel structure of what the teddy bear originally was supposed to be on. So coming after the fact and being able to see this mutilated bear box, essentially, walk in for a little meeting on a couple of how to paint tiny fuzzy animals, and sitting on the metal skeleton of what the bear was destined to originally become in this meeting adds to the crew side of enjoying this bear. So I just wanted to mention that I appreciated that aspect of it.
I have a picture of you sitting on the bear in a meeting.
Well, we need to see that. But also, I don't know if this is known, but that bear has gone on to become a gorgeous, really creepy sculpture by Sadie Nash, who worked on the bear, and you could see it on Sadie's Instagram, I'm pretty sure.
Very attached to the bear. Rick was like, okay, you have to make them stop working on this bear. And I'm like, yeah, but they're they wouldn't stop. He'd be like, we're gonna do this, and they'd come back over and they'd be touching up something, It's really.
Let me tell you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I mean, everyone gets we really into these things. We would work on this show for years,
It's one of the hardest things about managing creative people, managing artists is making them stop when they're really excited about something. It's okay, but you have, sometimes it's okay, you have 5 hours left. You have to finish in 5 hours, trying to kind of motivate that, get to the end, because, when we make these things out of a passion, and it's fun, so.
Yeah, I think it also really shows the passion that all of you have for the nightmare that you induced on all of us this season.
Yeah, but I don't want to skip over what you were saying. Though, is that my job is to sort of, or at least part of it is to interpret what is coming from DM and try to kind of imagine this holistic visual thing, but really it's where the rubber meets the road is the art director. It's Casey, who is helping on all of those fronts, projections and budgets and time cards and getting people hired and what scheduling, all these things. It's how it all comes together and how it every little thing gets done, every T gets crossed and I gets dotted, and it's all there on time. That's the KC.
So the legendary Rick Perry, but the crucial Casey McGeorge.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I stay involved, or the hobby that going back to the other question, that the hobby that the season and generally the show lets me use is worrying and fretting. Just concern about everything, and you just kind of have to be nosy almost, and that goes into the how we stay involved remotely. I would call Kelsey 8 times a day and be like, so what's going on? So yeah, it's just having an investment in everything, and yeah.
Very cool. So a thing Shane said to me when I was chatting with him is he has become a professional butthole sculptor. And I'm curious, are there things that you have done for Dimension 20 that you're like, I never expected to be doing this? I mean, obviously a lot of things, I'm sure, but like something that stands out, maybe from Burrow's End, that you're like, well, this wasn't a thing when I was, studying theater in college, that I thought, like, I'm going to put my degree to good use.
Yeah.
All of it, all of the above.
Yeah, basically. I have a moment that like is literally like that moment for me, but it's for next season, so I have to close lips.
We'll be back. Don't worry. Yeah.
Sometimes it's like the research part of it, of just like going down a rabbit hole of like, well, this bear's too rotten, and this animal, it's like I'm just like, it's like you become like a minutia examiner of reference. Like I'm pulling reference, and sometimes with help, pulling reference, and then sort of rejecting and like kind of collating it, and just sort of keeping the stuff like, okay, this part, see this like really disgusting thing, or this rust or whatever. But it's sort of, sometimes it's strange to think about the amount of time and energy that's put into like little tiny corners of things to make it look cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen like on a lot of our behind the scenes photos in the studio, it's just like covered in reference, and actually made it really hard. I wanted to shout out the work that we were doing for every episode, and I was actually texting Casey and be like, do you think this is revealing anything? And be like, there's a picture of like something in the background, and
be like,
yeah. On the bottom, there's like one photo, it's like Raven working, and it looked really cool, and like literally on the bottom of the desk is like the final battle like image that Rick drew. I was like, oh my god. But like we have so much reference, and I think that adds a lot into, like, you can tell that Rick has really cultivated like specifically this world. It's not too far this way, it's not too far that way. It's like through all of these images we've picked like these ones, and like, it's very clear where we're going.
Derek and Ruby, is that the same vibe you have for projections then? Just like an absolute ton of reference?
Oh, yeah. Rick and Casey send tons and tons of reference over for us to look at for every single background. And then the general aesthetic-y type stuff too. So that we're combining those things and taking horrible, gory bear inside pictures and making them pretty watercolor, still really gross. And then passing all that information on to the bear, especially, is one I want to shout out, as was our other artist we work with as well, was painted by Jack Spoon, who worked with us on Ravening War as well, painting some of the backgrounds. And it's just amazing artist, wonderful to work with. Hated doing the bear, was like, it's so gross, and I'm like, yeah, but you're gonna do it so well. And so he really pulled through all the revisions because I feel like we really leaned in with the gross fat originally, and Rick was like, pull some of that away.
Yeah.
It was just dripping the first iteration.
Yeah, that's really right. I forgot about that.
So we pulled some of that back, and so just those revisions, and going through that to make sure everything matches, so it feels like it's in the same world as the model that's on the table, and everything feels really cohesive.
Projections are such a tricky thing, because the projection is really like the biggest canvas we have on the show. It covers so much real estate, in every shot, and it's powerful. It's like a really powerful spice in the soup that we're making or whatever, and it gets kind of fussy with like, oh, that's too much, or like, oh, that thing's intersecting someone's head, which Derek and Ruby are really, really good at, and have continued to get even better at, I think, over the years here of doing stuff. So.
Yeah, and this was your first time, right, in the new permanent dome this season. So yeah, what has been some of the evolutions that you have seen from like previous domes to now a hopefully permanent spot that you have, both in terms of projections as well as like building the set, building the table, camera angles for minis, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, this was actually the first thing that we were actually brought on to help with before any content stuff. Was just talking about new dome projections with it. How do we set up a new dome to better serve projections? Because versus in the old dome, it was all one projector behind each wall. The walls came in every time, so the projectors were kind of at a different angle every time, depending on where the walls ended up, with the tables and the cameras. And they had those vertical structural supports in the back that meant there were pretty thick vertical shadows on the screens from behind them that would always drive me crazy. And so we were really pushing in the design of this dome, going back and forth. I was like, what's the way we could get rid of all of those shadows so we have as clean of an image as possible? And did an amazing job figuring out the way that we could do that. Having the material, just the material on the back and all the structure on the front side, to allow us to do an array of projectors behind each dome that are all in permanent position. So it's so nice for me because every time I come in for a new season, it's just like little tiny tweaks to get it back into space, as opposed to having to remap the whole dome every time. But yeah, it's the new dome is a wonderful space, and the studio it's in too is just, it feels so nice to walk into, and it's such a nice little home for it now that it's there and it's bolted into the ground.
Yeah,
it feels like a spaceship chapel in there. Like when it's not, it's like really, it's just like chill. Like during the mini shoot, Hallie, our producer, would just like sit in there at the DM's chair with like a single lamp and with like a blanket on her lap and just like chill. Like it feels like I don't know, like it's a sanctuary almost, like when it's just the dome lights, like in there.
it is cool. And yeah, I mean, shout out to Lindsay Moran and Leonard Bessemer and Derek and Ruby, who basically, because we were doing Mintopolis and Drag when that set was being designed and built, that like basically I just sort of like dumped off the project once we had sort of gotten the rough version of it, and they burned some midnight oil figuring out how to essentially, I won't bore you with all the details, but like previously, as Derek said, the structure of the dome was on the backside. So you have the facade that you see, and you have these like vertical like studs, and they figure out a way to shrink all that down and put it all on the front side behind the trim, so the back could be perfectly flat, which provides for a perfect projection. And it was an ordeal, but they got it done. So
yeah,
awesome.
It was that with the space being slightly thinner than the other space. Everything, I feel like it is always the case with everything we're doing in there, is that everything works perfectly to the inch. So it's like the projectors are exactly where they have to be to the inch, like an inch from the wall, exactly where they are. If anything was even slightly more off, it wouldn't work and we wouldn't be able to make the shots. It's like it's all just perfectly aligned for exactly what it needs to be.
Even down to the, behind the trim are these little LED ribbons, and like from the camera angle, when you look, they're perfectly hidden and you get a nice glow. But if you step 4 feet to the side, you start to see the LED ribbons peeking out. Like it's really designed down to the exact camera angles.
What for folks that are making minis? Is there have you gotten to see new dome joy? Yeah,
so I can easily, having seen the dome through all its iterations, as a tall, non-dexterous, I can only see out of one eye, so no depth perception. Being able to carry a board and place it down, and that's the whole step for this dome. Such a joy. Dome 1 was a dance that I was not trained to be capable of. So I'm happy that it is more dome in heart than in form. So that way it fits everyone who has to physically work so much better.
That's very fun. Yeah, I'm also curious about obviously, like you said, getting in and out of the dome, obviously much easier than the first dome. But does that also then, are there things that are needing to get fixed on the fly? Both, minis that are, maybe unintentionally stepped on when Erica's climbing up on a table, or, whatever happens. I know in previous seasons, you've had to run in and like lop off like a castle so that it could like run along the battlefield because it's been animated. But like what, how are like fixing things on the fly? How is that happening these days?
Well, we actually ended up like right when we put the bear in the dome this time, we actually like flipped it like 180 from where it was originally supposed to go. So like things definitely change like when you see them in the dome, like which is really exciting. And I think, I mean, Casey does that a lot too. Like, I mean, I guess that's things that are changing, like the mini shoots having to be quick about making stuff. But I mean, yeah, things they're very active in the dome, and we have to fix things sometimes.
Yeah, like DM screen touch-ups are way easier now. Like I think it was Ravening War where it's like you have Raven and Casey sitting like on the tiniest spots of table while multiple people are over top just like touching every single aspect. We couldn't physically do that on other dome iterations that we can on this. So it makes those like last second touch-ups like as easy as it can be.
Yeah.
We have a little
Lots
art
of
repair station off to the side with just like an X-Acto knife ready to go and like glue and just like whatever you might need, just entirely in preparation for a potential like that. And it has been used. Little nurse's office.
Yeah, there's lots of pictures of like when we're doing installs, like when we did Mentopolis, that was a lot of installing things like in the like, you know, having to fly things in and install it right there, and lots of artists squatting on the tables, like installing things. It's quite fun. It's a full contact sport install.
A lot on the mini shoot because we're handling them so much. Like I remember on Never After, I dropped a Cinderella. It dropped it. Like it just like left from my hands as I was walking over to the table. I don't know how it happened. And her head came off. And I mean, the head of a mini, it's like half a grain of rice. And I was like, nobody move. We have to find I remember Shalbag was like, can you like make another one quick? And I was like, no, I can't. We have to find it. And so we like everyone on the crew like down on our hands and knees and really wanted to what is it? And Shalbag actually found it, and I was so grateful. Because it's it's tricky.
I think they love it when it happens. Like they have to like participate, you know, like, oh.
It's like the highest pressure scavenger hunt. Because it's like, I mean, there's not a single season that goes by without me/multiple people having to be hands and knees at some point. Because like with the timelines, maybe we only have one of a mini, and having to reprint a piece or having to reorder a piece is way longer than crawl around in the ground and hope you find something.
That's a hot tip is keep your shop floor clean, because when you have to go find like a head or an arm, if there's less like crumbs and weird random bits, it's a lot easier to find. But as Shane knows, usually the piece that Shane drops that falls into his boot.
They keep your boots untied and loose.
Open, like this. It's a stylistic choice, and it's a pro model making choice, you know.
Model making instinct, or at least I developed this in college when I was making like set design models all the time, and I still have it. Like if I feel something, if I'm sitting at a table and like a piece of food or something rolls off the edge, my thighs like clamp together to try to catch it in like under like 0.5 seconds. Like I can't turn it off. Like eating dinner, something feels like it's getting toward the edge. I'm just like ready to catch. That saves it when it's like a little chair made out of dust and prayers. You know, if it had hit the floor, it would be done.
100% same like physical instinct, which is really dangerous when you drop X-Acto knives.
I was gonna say something. Yeah.
I'm curious about some of the things that didn't get used this season. I don't know if there were any projections that didn't get to be used. I do know that there's at least some talk of the potential of like thousands of Stoat minis involved in that final battle, which I'm assuming were somewhere backstage. What is?
Wasn't thousands, but there were like 20 or 30 Stoat civilians and from last past, I think, right?
They were like between 16 and 18 around some, but did they not get used during the battle?
No, it was just a possibility as like how they were, where they might be, and they might have been in other situations. So they were kind of like,
The
extra.
the only non PC in the final battle is Lucas, and that was Aabria's cupcake topper mini that she just threw onto the map.
Yeah. Usually when those kind of things, it's like, we're aware of what's been used and not used, and usually like I will try to remind GMs, like as we get like, okay, we've gone through these, we made these element of this group of minis, or maybe a mini that was supposed to maybe be for this first battle or the second battle, and it didn't get used, and so I'll sort of like try to bring it up each time, and a lot of times they make it into other places or get used in other ways or whatever, but sadly those folks didn't make it into the show.
But someday, potentially, they could make it into your hands at home.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
They're still there somewhere.
We had all those extra minis, but Aabria put in the cupcake stove. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. It was the only one she had handy, from what I understand. That she didn't have to go backstage to try and find.
They weren't far, though. The other ones were like 10 feet away or something. She just had to call it. She wanted to put that one in there.
Yeah. So that then she could talk about how it was her birthday later on in interviews. We know how Aabria works. She and I are in a blood feud. It's fine.
Which, to be fair, was a worthwhile mini to use. I remember that morning when Casey was like, I know there's a lot of stuff you have to do, but if you can just squeeze this in, like, I'd be super grateful. So I did that mini first.
I like presents.
Very sweet.
Is everyone getting presents from Casey? Is that a thing that's happening? Casey offered me a present in our one-on-one. I don't know, like, how I deserved it. Like,
not that many. Well, Kelsey's birthday's coming up. I haven't been yet.
Oh yeah, my 30th on the 30th. Woo!
Hey, well, happy early birthday! And how dare you be so young and talented?
So much life ahead of me.
Yeah. Were there any projections that you didn't get to see, or did you make it through everything?
Season. We're normally pretty good about getting all of the projections in there, and the whoever is DMing at the time is usually really mindful about getting all that to show up. So this season, everything was in there.
Yeah.
It feels like foreshadowing, but I won't push it.
Why would you say that?
Couldn't possibly say.
Projections. Their projection. A projection represents a big amount of effort, from illustration to actually realizing it in projection software, and then keying it up. And so in general, we try to, it'd be like almost like skipping a battle, not quite that scale, but it's something we try to always use. So.
Yeah. I wanted to share something with y'all. I wonder if it's gonna let me do this, or if I need to find it. Oh, no. Can I just share my whole window? Yeah, I can. I want this. Here we go. And get your thoughts on it.
We can't hear her.
Oh no, you can't hear it? Oh no. Okay. Well, it's Rashawn calling Rick Perry a diabolical motherfucker, and then the rest of you all calling you all diabolical motherfuckers for what you inflicted on them this season. Any thoughts on the players' reactions to the things that you got to see this season?
Rashawn can say whatever she wants to me. She's the coolest person alive.
I know. That's how I feel. I'm like, I'm going to put that on my resume.
You're like, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Getting a strong reaction for anything is always like the most satisfying thing. Like, so much of my enjoyment comes from the player reactions. Seeing how they react to everything. It's just amazing. It's like, it makes everything worth it.
I have a specific...
1,000%.
A friend sent me a clip from the adventuring party, which like I don't typically watch, and there was a clip of Erica. They were all debating if they could touch something, and on the board, I think it was a neutral board. And someone said, like, Rick said we can't touch it. And then someone said, Casey said we can. And I was like, I don't recall saying that at all. It sounds like the opposite of our dynamic. I'm usually like,
Yeah.
sound like me. So I have a bone to pick with Erica because she said that and then knelt on the table and started touching stuff. I otherwise like seeing the reaction when they're not being minxy.
Yeah, it's like as Dirk says, it's kind of like it's maybe the best part of the job in a way. It's because we spend all this time and energy making these crafted things or projections, whatever it is. These essentially they're like toys. They're like little surprises for the cast, who are incredibly talented, charming people, and that moment where you get to see their genuine reaction to it and appreciation of it is just like it's the best.
Well, yeah, and also there's people like Rick, me, Raven. I'm pretty sure Casey has a little bit too of as far as DMs, like in our own private game stuff. So, and even not the gamers like the Kelsey, where you make stuff all the time. So being able to make something and are used to being able to have the like, here's the thing I made, here's the person I'm giving it to. I have that gratification. I can see. We don't get that in the workshop because we're not part of that side of it. So I don't think it's exaggerating whenever something big goes off. Like the art team does stop to like look at the reaction because that's like, from the little sidelines, like in the wall, peeking through just to see like our little piece of art, like how it's perceived on that side is really enjoyable.
We do a really good job of keeping everything a surprise too for the players, so you're getting immediate reactions from everything. And we spend a lot of time thinking about player experience too for the projections as well, because the walls are actually like really big and you're only seeing a small section of it on camera. But if you see from any of the behind the scenes pictures and stuff, we fill the whole wall top to bottom to really make sure it's an immersive experience for the players, because seeing the reactions of the players is what sells it for the audience as well. And so we really want to make sure that the players feel immersed in their environment.
Yeah, that's a whole part of our tech is like, we set the projections up and then we go sit in the dome and trigger the projections to see how it feels like, oh, is this going to make somebody nauseous or is this too distracting or too, stunning or whatever? Like that's an aspect of it we think about. But it is true that like when we have boards drop, there's often like model makers kind of lingering around Video Village, or sometimes they like say like a spider is going to be lowered from the ceiling. There's one of us will text an iPhone video of it to the rest of us or what, because we all know that we love those moments.
There is something different about seeing it in the dome, and there is a lot of like, oh, we're gonna go see it. Very excited. But there's always something like we can't always see exactly how it's gonna look, and when it's there, it's just crazy with everything. Insane.
Well, plus I think there's the some things that people don't keep in mind is that it's not like the art builds something and we move it on and then the shoot happens. It's all happening at the same time. So often it's like the art department is always still in the state of progress, in the state of working, that even getting to see that little clip is that like momentary dopamine hit to help push this next leg. That can be huge.
Yeah, I'm curious what all, outside of, I guess, Casey, because I know you didn't pay attention to it, fan reaction to this season, how it felt for you all to see sort of a, I'm guessing, outpouring of love towards you and everything that you've done this season. How was your reaction to their reaction? Our reaction. I'm a fan, not a professional.
Every time someone's like, Rick's amazing, I'm like, thank you.
As you should.
But like a large part of it is like, like Rick, and like we have to like be like, we helped him, like we're behind him, boo boo boo. But like everyone like, what?
I was just saying, I think they do a good job of like acknowledging like Rick and the team.
Oh, for sure. But like online, I feel like there is like now I feel like it is becoming more like Rick and the art team because they are very conscious about shouting us out in the adventuring party and stuff. But people were just going nuts. It's awesome. That I send that to the art crew too, like, because I don't know how they're really keeping up with it online, but it's really exciting. It's nice to get those props from fans.
Yeah, in a similar sense, because like I participate in the like, especially the horror miniatures side of like Instagram and stuff. I've gotten so many messages of praise about my work on this bear, and every single one of them like, it's the most beautiful thing that I have never touched. Please go follow these people.
Very Shane coded.
It has been really gratifying because this was a big season. It was a tough season.
The 20th season. It was
Yeah.
It was a special season.
Well, and also the scope of it. I mean, it really was like the scope of those battles is really above anything we've done previously. Just the amount of detail, the level of quality, the level of complexity, and the timeline was quite tight as well. So it was a challenge, and
Yeah, like 2.5.
yeah, it was wild, and so to see it actually, and we all believed in it. I think we all loved what we were making, you know. And during the taping, I was like, "This is a great season," but you never really know, you know. There's no real kind of confirmation until it's out there, and to see it get so much love is very gratifying for sure.
I think that's a good point in that the one thing that I enjoy about seeing like the fan reactions is that because we spend all our time in the art bubble, like always experience the show in such a different way, like including a lot of times I have to be corrected on the names of things because whatever we call it in the shop is the only thing locking in my brain. And like this season, like again, I love animals, I love horror. I thought it was going to be cool. I have no idea how they were going to take it. My whole picture of the season is sitting in making weird horror stuff with people while Casey blasts 6 different versions of the national anthem, which is the greatest soundtrack to a horrific wasteland. But also, like, so that's Burrow's end to me, is that. So being able to see the polished side of it and that sort of reaction is like it completes the picture.
Sorry, can we go back to that part real quick? The national anthem, like the Star Spangled Banner, or like
we made a group playlist and Casey's not even there. And then like put in like 6 versions of the song.
In Sunnyside, Queens, like I know I've moved to LA, but what really actually started from, I realized, is on Lopez Island, and actually on the way there, Raven and I both brought instruments. I brought my guitar-lele and she brought her fiddle, and we were like, when we were waiting for the ferry to go to the island, we were like, well, it's taking forever, let's just like play some music. And we were trying to think of like songs that we both knew, and like you learn how to play the Star Spangled Banner when you're in school. So that's where that started, because I was like, why has this become a thing that I'm like into the national anthem? Really not patriotic at all.
Slightly weird.
But that's really what it is. It's just like a convenient melody for intermediate level musicians.
But that's why you have to put it on our playlist 6 times.
That's called torture. Yeah.
They were 6 different times.
David and Jesse helped proliferate it into like a meme, because I think I'd always be like, "Come on, guys, let's jam. We can play the Star Spangled Banner." I just really need the internet to know like I'm not patriotic and I don't just like listen. Okay.
You heard it here first. Casey McGeorge, the biggest fan of U.S. imperialism around the.
Yeah, little does Brennan know, all we do is play the Star Spangled Banner in the shop. I thought we come in and salute every morning.
What's about contrast?
Yeah,
when you're playing an instrumental and you don't hear the lyrics, you're just like, wow, these are powerful intervals and a well-constructed melody. But you know, we're playing it without the words. And okay, let's move on.
Okay. The shop is just Star Spangled Banner and talking about how great capitalism is nonstop. It's the anti-Brennan zone. Incredible. Well, you talked about music that you play. What are, for the rest of you all, what is the art you're doing outside of Dimension 20?
Right now am making goblin heads. Like
They're so good too.
Oh,
I love them so
thanks.
much.
Yeah. I have made some more the other day, so yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on.
Slowly chipping away at a gigantic isometric city map of a city that we we are also tabletop gaming players, and we 2 years ago, year and a half ago, played a game called, I'm sorry, did you say Street Magic? Where you build a city together. It's based on Microscope, which might be slightly more familiar to some people, but probably not. And after a long time of going, we should play a game in this like setting that we made, we are finally trying to get that together for our friends, and so I'm slowly chipping away at a big isometric city map.
This big city we made as a setting for multiple different games, including a Blades in the Dark game that we were playing too, where I made like 40 factions that exist throughout this city and wrote down who was involved in them in every location, and this giant wiki I have sitting in a corner for 4 people.
So... I really want to see that map. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I also want to see the map.
I will absolutely post the map when more of it is filled in.
Awesome.
Yeah, for me, pretty much all my creative time has been channeling into The Flagellant and the Fool, which is sort of a like horror comedy, like indie RPG company. I started like writing stuff in between seasons, because when you talk about games all day long, your brain doesn't stop. So I started doing that just in between seasons, and I've just been focusing on that mostly.
Casey, I know you've got art on the side.
Got art. I'm like, what? Well, I'm trying to calibrate it. I'm currently designing the set for a live like improv D&D show called the 20-Sided Tavern that has a new production in development. So that's kind of what I'm up to right now in my like other professional life. But then within personal art, I really like decorating, which I kind of like consider an art form in my new space that I'm in here. And I'm also experimenting with 3D printing myself, 3D scanning myself and printing it out. I just started that last night, actually, as part of making an inside joke gift for my girlfriend that harkening back to a joke she made once. And so I'm experimenting with like new technology and like learning new programs. I'm like, I guess I'll have to learn 3D scanning for this. And oopsie, I'm learning Blender. Oh no. So I don't know if that quite counts as art, but more of like I always have like some little scheme happening.
I've been trying to paint Blackstone Fortress, this Warhammer 40K game that I bought years ago, and finally catching up on it. I'm also painting some minis for my kids' D&D game that I run for like neighborhood kids here. And I don't know, in general, I just do like a lot of homesteading stuff. It's kind of like my jam. I started a fire in my fireplace with a bow drill the other night for the first time, which is pretty cool.
I'm sorry. No, hold on. We're not skipping past that. I'm sorry. What?
It's not really art, but yeah, I just learned. I got somebody taught me how to use like a bow drill, and you use like a spindle and a bow drill on a really dry piece of cedar, and you just you get a little coal, and you know.
Oh, jeez.
It's exactly the energy I wanted on this call. Do the kids of Lopez Island have any idea that they are getting games run by the legendary Rick Perry, or is that not hit them yet?
It's funny, like I don't know. I mean, we haven't really talked about it, but the one thing that they flip out about is there's a picture up here somewhere of me and Matt Mercer from Brennan and Izzy's wedding, and they're just like, wow, I can't believe you know Matt Mercer. I'm like, yeah.
Be like, Matt Mercer knows how to use blue tack because of me.
Which I know because of Shane.
And I know because of a kid at a Games Workshop.
There you go. I was when I talked to Aabria, we were talking about the it went from Rick to Brennan to Matt to Aabria, like this pathway that it goes. I didn't realize it went back to Shane at the very beginning. It's very fun. Have all of you seen the legendary Rick Perry yet? And is he going to be a nightmare to deal with on set now that he has this full documentary about him?
We haven't seen it, but we were around when they're making it.
And no more nightmare than normal, I hope.
Fingers crossed.
Casey, looks like you had something to add to that.
I wasn't involved when it was filming. I know when we were doing Burrow's End, once in a while, it'll be like, oh, we have to do a documentary thing. So it's generally shrouded in mystery for me. It was funny seeing the Dropout news week, thing that they do, like things that are coming up, and seeing Rick's Lopez house in the background. I was like, it's just a weird world. I was like, I've been. This is what's happening. So yeah.
I had a similar thought when I saw it pop up, because again, I think that the doc happened mostly before I arrived, and while they were there a little bit, I'm used to your place being this oasis away from everything else, which is why it's such a great place to make things at. That just seeing a picture of this beautiful secluded place, just in an email, it was really weird. It's this is not the vibe I got from this place at all.
It's not an Instagram hangout of people posting selfies.
Well, not yet. That stuff is wild, man. I'm excited to see it come out. The whole process was strange and flattering and a little scary, and I've seen the doc. It's good. Brendan is a great filmmaker, and they did a really good job with it, and we'll see when it comes out what people think of it.
Is it a Ken Burns style? This is an 18-part, 3-hour each part documentary.
It's a 36-hour documentary. No, it's I think it's around 40 minutes, and it's a single, just sort of a documentary thing. They were talking about. I think Dropout has made documentaries in the past, and so it's a thing they wanted to pick up again, and they've sort of been expanding their content last year and this coming year and stuff. And so I think this is a new area they're exploring, and they have this idea of following a creative person and sort of almost like a chef's table or sort of thing, where you go and be with them and see their process. And so I think that we'll still see how this does, but there's the possibility of more kind of documentaries like this.
Incredible. All right, so we've got just a few minutes left, I think. So is there anything that all of you you would love, a season you would love, genre, anything like that obviously maybe it already has existed and you can't talk about it, that's fine, but is there anything that pops to mind, you're man, I really want to build Starstruck minis or whatever, right? Is there something of a genre that you haven't gotten to sink your teeth into yet?
Yeah, so I'll take the cop out. What we wanted before COVID happened was sci-fi, and what I want after COVID happened is sci-fi.
Yeah, I agree with that. Would love to do a Starstruck season and minis. I'm a big fan of all the grimdark stuff. Would love to do something that was really textural. But also, I would love to do a season that was a bit more abstract and painterly. Imagine minis that are geometric shapes, or something that's more into a stepping away from the really figurative, literal version of miniatures and projections and stuff, and try to go into some other place would be cool.
Yeah, the weirder the better. I'm all for that. Anything we can do, the heavy stylized stuff, just way out there stuff is super fun. And so I just like new things, new challenges. That's always what's super exciting to me.
I like this.
Kelsey.
I like the seasons that are based in a particular real location, but then have an element of magical realism to them, like on Sleeping City. Like, and I would love to see that. And then Coffin Room was like that, tied into like a historical fiction element because it was Romania in like the 20s, I think. And I would love, man, like an Unsleeping City too, where it's like old New York, because I love New York City history. So, and then like magicifying that, like that'd be great.
I mean, I actually feel like all these seasons are so different. Like, it's really cool to be able to do all these different things. And then every time we do a new season, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, we haven't done that before. Like, I don't know. It feels like we've almost kind of done, not everything, obviously, but a lot of different types of sets and environments. And, oh, maybe like an underwater one. Wouldn't that be cool?
My personal side favorite is we were not involved yet during A Court of Fey and Flowers. Boy, do we love Feywild's theming, all that sort of stuff. Love to be involved with something like that if there was another one of those. That's my personal little just like, oh, I wish we were there for that. But now there's a future one. Man,
yeah, I'll second that. Let me get an excuse to do a bunch of mushrooms and gnomes, please.
I would like that. I do love whimsy.
Yeah. Yeah, like
besides the all patriotic one, it's all like red, white, and blue.
The like sort of war movie theme.
My answer being about historical fiction really didn't help work against that.
I want to explicitly explore when Francis Scott Key was writing the Star Spangled Banner.
There's a whole season in there for sure.
Yeah.
There's an NPC.
Mia, thank you all so much for joining me. A truly incredible season. I've mentioned this to a bunch of you. Well, actually, I probably haven't because the season wasn't over yet. So only Casey knows that, like, I really, like, felt very comfortable in my, like, Starstruck Odyssey is my favorite, Sophomore Year is my second favorite, and A Crown of Candy is my third. And then Aabria came in and, like, ruined that. And I can't figure out where to put Burrows in because it's so good. And because of, like, you all is one of the main reasons why it is so good. I'm so grateful to all that you provide to that incredible story every time, but specifically since we're here talking about Burrow's End, I mean, projections, bears, horrifying minis, like everything so good this year. I know they said there's not going to be a production talkback after the end of junior year, so this is just me saying, you guys want to come back at the end of junior year and talk about that again? Because I will have you every single season and talk about it forever if you want to. Yeah, thank you all so much.
Yeah, well, I would totally do this again, and thank you, Jordan, for just for your interest in the show and for being excited to talk to each of us, and then for creating this space. And it's such a good idea because I think we all remember different things, and it sort of triggers this like recollection. It's so nice to talk to my friends about stuff that we get to make. So I just feel really grateful.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. And go follow all these fine folks on the social media. You know where to find them. They're in the places that you've seen them. I'll tag them all in the places. All right, I'm going to hit stop recording.